welcome back to Movies and Podcast. I'm Summer,
And I'm Lynn.
and this is episode 11. This is going to be kind of like going off of last week's episode. We thought this would be a good topic, and it's going to be fetishization.
The long awaited fetishization episode that we've
Yes,
been talking about forever.
yeah, I'm sorry if I stumble on that word. I don't know why I can't pronounce it like
It's a lot
properly.
of consonants together,
Yeah,
so don't
it
worry.
is. So, Lynn, I'm going to kick it off to you because you wanted to talk about something specific, right, regarding this?
Yeah, I wanted to start off, and I think I mentioned it in passing in another episode. It might have been, honestly, I don't remember which one, but it was kind of focused on people who have mixed babies or like kind of
Mm-hmm.
that obsession with mixed babies, you know?
Yeah.
Like there's this weird thing that happens, and I've seen it, people post it a lot on social media where there's like specifically white women, they go and want to go date men of color, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just because they want to have mixed babies. It's all over TikTok, and it's, short videos like that where they're like, oh my God, I want a mixed baby with like tan skin and light eyes and like curly hair, like the light brown or dark brown hair, like depending on who, or
Yeah.
like they want someone who looks Asian with, blonde hair with the Asian eye shape, the almond shape,
Mm-hmm.
but with like blue eyes or something. Like
Right.
completely ignoring how genetics work, obviously.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can have multiple children and they all can either look pretty similar to each other or, look completely different. Like one child can be lighter skinned and the other can be, so like white passing versus POC passing.
Mm-hmm.
Just,
Yeah.
because that's how genetics works. You have no control over it. But they like want to make these designer babies and it's really weird.
Yeah, we did talk about this, and I remember I said, and I still stand by this comment, if you want to do something like that, seriously, just go play The Sims. Because that's what you can do in there. And you can, like, craft these, like, defy genetics and craft these superhumans that are beautiful and what you want them to look like. If that's what you want to do, then go to The Sims. Don't do that in real life, and also don't like choose someone just based on their features,
Yeah.
and then it's really deceiving too because they might think that you are choosing them because you actually love them for everything, like for everything that they are, but then
Hmm.
really your ulterior motive is like that you just want to have mixed children, and that's really unfair to them.
Yeah, or even just the novelty of like, ooh, I want to date them because they're X race and stuff like that. Like some people have
Yeah.
that mindset, which is really gross.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It's really sad to see people like, oh, they're talking about things they like about them, and it's all things that are just very obviously related to their race. So they're just like obsessed with the fact that their partner is of a certain race. And
Yeah.
this isn't even just for POC. This is like, it can go the other way too.
Yeah, I've seen like I think in TV shows where, or maybe in real life too, I can't recall, but where people are like, "Oh, I've never dated an X," meaning like insert the race or ethnicity type. Like I've never dated. People would say like I've never dated an Asian, or I've never dated a Hispanic person, or like, I've seen
Um,
people say that in like TV shows, and I'm like, what the heck? That's
no, that
really
happens
weird.
in
Like,
real life.
yeah, is this like a checklist? Like a do before you die? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, no, I've heard of people, they like go on a date with someone and that person goes like, "Oh, I've never dated like an Asian before. You're my first." And I'm like, "That's so
Ew,
gross. What is
that's
the
really gross.
why?
Has anyone ever
Why?"
said that to you?
I think I've had people say like you're the first like mixed person I've dated before. But if you think about it, what would you say that to anyone that was like your own race? Like say someone who's white was
Uh-huh.
going on a date with someone who was white, and it was the first white person they've dated, just like in general.
Right.
Would you say to that person of your same race, "Oh, I've never dated like a white girl before"? It's always like of someone who's not your own race that they say it to.
I think it would be weird whether you're dating within or out of your race. Like, I think
Oh
that's
yeah,
just such
it's
a
weird
weird
no
thing
matter
to
what,
say.
but
Yeah,
it's
and
kind of
like,
a double whammy for us because people are gonna say I've never dated someone who was half Japanese or half Vietnamese before.
yeah, that's just like, I'm waiting for the, oh, you're so exotic comment, you know? Like,
Ugh.
oh, please.
Ew.
Let's just not.
Yeah, it's gross.
Yeah, I don't think, I'm trying to think, I don't think anybody has said that to me. Maybe I blocked it out of my memory, but
I would
um
have.
yeah, nobody said that to me like explicitly. I mean, maybe they were thinking it or they've said it in like a different way, but
I
yeah.
think it comes more in the form of it comes like in other comments where someone will they won't say it specifically about, oh, I've never dated someone who is, mixed or whatever, but they will also like constantly point it out or point out things about you that they think like have to do with that or like try to
Mm,
guess,
yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
or try to hint at the fact that they know that you're mixed.
Mhm.
And it's like it's just weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you ever had like with you and your significant other,
Mhm.
have you ever had people just like randomly say that you're gonna have really cute babies?
Yeah, I mean, I have, and it's come from like close friends, not really from strangers, thank goodness. It's come
Mm-hmm.
from close friends who they're like, okay, you're gonna have like really beautiful children, and I don't think they meant it in like a fetishization way. Like, I don't think
Mm-hmm.
they meant it in like a, oh my gosh, mixed children, you're gonna have the best mixed kids. I think the way they meant it is like they think that we're a good match for each other and that
Mm-hmm.
we will be like good parents, if that makes sense. And so we'll have good kids that will
Right.
also be like cute. I don't know. I
No, I
can't
know what you
speak.
mean.
Yeah.
There is like this weird thing about people though that they'll tell mixed like interracial couples, like
Mm-hmm.
unsolicited strangers will tell interracial couples like online or in person, you're gonna have like to the couple, no matter like if they're dating or getting ready to be married or like they don't even know them or like where in the stage they are, but they'll be like you guys would have such cute babies. Like what kind of
Mm-hmm.
comment is that?
Yeah, from a stranger, that's weird to me. Like,
Also, people have like this weird obsession with having, like we were saying, like with having mixed kids.
mm-hmm.
But like, what does that say to other kids too? Like, well, first of all, it makes a lot of mixed kids like it might. There's like a rare chance it might get to their head, like where they think they're hot shit.
Yeah.
Because I know some people that are just like, oh, I'm so hot, and it's because I'm mixed, and I'm just like,
Ew,
yeah, it's
that's
weird.
gross.
But then, like, if you're like that, and I think we mentioned it before, if you don't look like the perfect mixed person to people, like their idea of a mixed person,
Mm-hmm.
like, what does that say to you? Like, are you not also like a beautiful baby and stuff like that? Like, people will say that, like, people will say, like, oh, I hope your baby has a
Right.
certain feature, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, what if they don't? Are they gonna not be the same baby to you? My relative has a really good blog called Truth Mom Blog, and so she has a biracial baby who's mixed, like she's white and her husband is black.
Mm-hmm.
And she talks about this a little bit where even she calls out family members too, which like good on her for speaking up,
Yeah.
where she talks about how people would come up to her and say try to look for like because her I think her eyes are blue, but like obviously that's like a recessive trait and it's like 99% guaranteed that his eyes would have been brown like her baby's eyes.
Mhm.
and people were like looking for flecks of blue and like eye color changes when he's young, and like looking at his skin tone and saying like, oh, he's getting darker, oh, he's like, oh, his
Yeah.
hair texture is so cute and stuff like that. Like they're so obsessed with these features of her baby just because he's mixed, you know.
Yeah.
And they would say, oh, I hope he has like your blue eyes, or it's really weird stuff tied specifically to being mixed, you know? Like they hope for
Yeah.
certain features to be like perfectly mixed. And she puts it really well on a post of hers where it's like, my baby's gonna be beautiful no matter what. Like, why are you trying to impose these things on a
Yeah.
baby?
Don't say stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
it's just not cool. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of this is the point of our episode, you know? Like people there's still a lot of people around even within our own families that still believe that, you know, like who still think like that, like, "Oh, I hope whatever feature."
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like it's just let's hope that the baby is like happy and healthy and you know that the parents are going to love the baby and think that it's beautiful no matter what.
Mhm.
So let's not just impose these expectations that have nothing to do with you anyway.
Mhm.
And like nobody has any control over them. So I don't know why
Exactly.
people even mention them. Yeah, it's just really like hurtful.
Yeah, I'll link it if I find it. There's this TikTok that I saw. It was this white lady who married a man who was, I think he was from Central or no, sorry, South America, like he was Peruvian.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking about, her kids. That one, she was saying like she called her kid, the first kid, by her name,
Mm-hmm.
and talked about, oh, she has this beautiful tan skin and like these light colored eyes and like dark hair and stuff like that. And then she talked about her second child, didn't
Mm-hmm.
even call her second child by her name, just said, and her sister, like it's not even her child. And
Right.
because
Her
her child
sister.
was lighter skinned and
Mm-hmm.
looked more white passing, she was like, and it was the way she was saying it where basically it was very clear she was talking about this baby, her second child that was white passing, as lesser than her child that had obvious mixed features.
Wow.
And like, this is your baby, like it's
You
really
shouldn't be a parent. No, seriously, like you should not.
basically.
Yeah, you shouldn't be not. And I can't really speak a lot on parenting because I'm not a parent yet. In my opinion, you shouldn't be a parent if you're not going to love your child no matter what.
Right.
Because
It was just a really weird
yeah,
thing
well,
to
the
see.
child probably will or already does. If they don't yet, they eventually will feel like they aren't going to live up to their mother's expectations, and they could probably already feel how she doesn't really view them as beautiful maybe,
Hmm.
or like they don't feel that they're valued as much as their sibling, and that's really toxic,
Yeah,
and that can really like mess them up for life.
exactly. I almost forgot. There was one thing I wanted to mention about like people treating like their kids like that, or like wanting designer babies.
Uh-huh.
My It's so like even weird to say because I don't even know how to say
Mm-hmm.
it seriously, but he was 100% serious about this. So someone I
Mm-hmm.
dated for a while, he he was
Mm-hmm.
monoracial, and he wasn't white, right? He wasn't from the US, he was from another country where it's like very highly
Mm-hmm.
homogenous. So I was the first person he dated who wasn't like from his country, and like obviously
Mm-hmm.
was mixed race, right? And one time he just straight up told me, like, when I get older, I want all my grandchildren to be like one of each race. And I
I
I didn't know how to respond. He was like, made it sound like he was like, yeah, I want to have like four different kids, and each of them can have kids with someone else from another race, and I want
If
like
that's the
one of
reason you
each.
want children, then you are in it for the wrong reasons.
I had no idea how to respond to that.
Yeah, it's a no from me, dog.
Well, the first problem, literally, the first problem is he knew I like am like not sure if I want children or
Mm-hmm.
not. He already knew that. and he was still talking about like grandchildren.
Uh,
We and at the time we were also like
right.
21. And so I was like, how am I supposed to respond to this?
That's so weird and bizarre.
I also had like definitely talked to him before about, things we talk about on the podcast and how like weird it is to be, objectified or fetishized
Hmm.
for being mixed. And then he just comes out and says this to me one day
Wow.
where he's like, I think we were talking about like when like what we would do when we're
Uh-huh.
old as like as people, like not even necessarily if we were together, but he was like, yeah, I want a bunch of grandchildren. I want like one that was like each race so I can say, oh, I have this, granddaughter, grandson, whatever. And I just was like,
Talk
what
about
the
planning your
fuck?
life ahead, but like also with ridiculous expectations that probably are not going to happen.
PSA, that's definitely a red flag.
Yeah, for sure. For so many
Oh,
reasons.
oh my god. Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. I think that's pretty much all we have to say about babies. Let's move to our
Hmm.
current lives as mixed
Yes.
individuals. We should talk about fetishization of, you know, us.
Yes, because we've definitely felt, you know, fetish size. Jesus.
Yeah, I think we touched on it a little bit where we were talking about people, saying like, "Oh, I've never
Hmm.
dated an Asian
Hmm.
girl" or stuff like that. Um, Personally, I feel like it's really weird the different dynamic that like girls and guys will say to you, like as a mixed person, if they're
Yeah.
monoracial. Most girls will say to you, I wish I was mixed like you.
Yeah.
I've had so many people say that to me. Have you had people say that to you?
Yeah, I have.
Where they're like, I wish I was mixed. And I'll be like,
Oh
no,
my
you do
gosh, I
not.
just thought of something like that triggered a memory. It's not about a girl saying that, but like this guy asked me what my mix was, and of course, a very
Uh-huh.
common question. Um, how original, but so I was like, yeah, I'm half Norwegian, half Japanese, and he was like, oh my god, that's such a beautiful mix, and I was like, oh, this is like I don't know why, but I'm like extremely disgusted right now by you as a human. And this was on like,
Well, when you say that, you imply that there's like a thing as a not
yeah,
beautiful
but
mix.
he was like, the way he said it too, and this was like on a school bus, and like, yeah, this was like,
Ew.
yeah, this was
That's
like
like 10 times grosser.
ninth grade, and yeah, this guy like had a crush on me. He wanted to know my mix. I told him, and then like the way he responded was just it. Yeah, I don't know, fetishization for sure. Like that's what it felt like. It felt like I felt kind of like an object.
Hmm.
It was gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is gross.
I've got more stories, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, people saying to you, like for me personally, it's been mostly like other women that will say, like, oh, I wish I was mixed. But what they mean by that is they just want
Yeah.
certain like body features, but obviously not
Yeah,
all the
you don't
baggage
want
that
to be.
comes with
I mean, like, once you see what happened. um,
Yeah. It's either that or they'll say like, "Oh, I hope my kid like I want mixed kids and stuff like that." And
yeah.
I'm just like,
I've definitely heard people say that.
"Ew."
I've definitely heard girls say that to me too. Like, oh, I wish I was mixed. And I'm like,
Hmm.
what? Is this a compliment? Because it's not.
And then the thing from men is like either the
Hmm.
gross dating thing or just like them openly admitting that they
Has
have a
anyone done that?
fetish. No,
Hmm.
not directly to me. They've never like said like, oh, like I love mixed girls, like and stuff like that. Like I've never had anyone say that
Hmm.
directly to me, but I don't know. There's also, but I have had the thing happen where people will say, I almost want to call it like they think you're a safe version to date. So like in our case, like if someone's like a
Mm-hmm.
monoracial Asian guy, and if they've like, oh, you're not too white or you're not too
Right.
Asian, like from anybody, like you're like a
Yeah.
watered down version of both. So you're like a safe choice. Like I don't know how else to say it, but it like I think you understand like the concept I'm getting at, where they think you're like a safe choice because you're not too something, which is like also
Jeez.
very
Yeah.
stupid.
I don't know why. I just like thought of like the shittiest light beer I've ever had, and it's like comparing ourselves to that. They don't want to have the strong beer, so yeah, they don't want to have
The
the
our
strong
shitty
beer,
beer.
so they're going for the Kirkland Light, which is us. But we're not Kirkland Light. We're top tier beer.
We're that specialty craft beer.
We're top shelf. uh, anyway,
Yeah.
that's what it to me. It just like it goes hand in hand with objectifying people.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
that's what it feels like. I mean, you just feel like this big thing is stamped on your forehead, mixed, and
Yeah.
that's
And it's
why.
like, why does that matter?
Yeah, it shouldn't.
What would it matter if we were, monoracial? Like, what's the point of that? Like, it's obviously very tied to us being biracial, as
Mm-hmm.
much as you want to say it's not, it is.
Yeah.
Have you had any gross encounters with men because of being mixed?
Have I?
Or not have you? Please share at least one.
I wanted to share. I think I had at least. Oh wait, I have like two. So the first one I'll share is like actually like it's a short encounter that I had. Another one's like a long term one. So I went to I went to Japan one summer and I met up with a friend and we went to this club in Tokyo, and when we went there, okay, mind you, she was also half too, but she was more Asian passing,
Hmm.
but a different half than me. But I won't say
Hmm.
because that's just personal information I won't share. But so we went to this club and then we saw these like Japanese businessmen, and they were like all kind of like lined up, like just looking at the women walking into this club, like in the entrance. And it was just like freaking me out, but I was like, whatever, I don't give a shit, like I'm not gonna interact with these gross people. But the thing is, I know Japanese, and they don't think, I think they thought that I didn't know. So they were just speaking very loudly and openly and not like trying to hide what they were saying. And
Yeah.
so, because there were a lot of like different, it wasn't just Japanese people at this club. Clearly, like it
Hmm.
was, there were some big people like me and my friend. And then there was some British people. Like it was just like a wide variety of
A lot
ethnicities.
of gaijin.
Yes, a lot of gaijins, a lot of foreigners. That's what that means. So there were a lot of, yes, gaijins in the club, but they were like pointing at these women and they were like, oh, in Japanese, and they were like, oh, no, no, this one, and then they were like, trying to like point out basically like their target for the night, like who they wanted
Ew.
to pursue, for lack of a better term.
Ew.
Yeah. And then they like saw me, and then they saw me and my friend, and they were like, oh, no, no, this one, like this one, and it was just like disgusting. Like it was clear that they like totally disregarded like anybody who came in before, and then they were like, oh no, these women. And it felt
Hmm.
like it was fetishization because we were mixed, me and my friend,
Right.
like I said. But they could tell that we were like mixed with Asian, I think. And
Hmm.
so like they were attracted to that. And
Yeah.
I don't know, like it's hard to describe because you kind of had to like be there in the moment, or if that's happened to you, then you would know what I felt
Yeah.
like. But like
Hmm.
it was obvious, like objectifying women, by like just choosing them like their objects to like use. And
Right.
then like all of a sudden like their tone like changed once me and my friend walked by them. Like it was just a complete change. Like it was like, oh yeah, that one's
Hmm.
pretty, that one's pretty, and then all of a sudden it was like, no, these bitches. And it was just really disgusting.
Yeah, that sounds really gross.
And this like happens to women in general, I think,
Hmm.
and maybe not as explicit. And like I think they were being that explicit, like I said, because they didn't think that I knew Japanese. But I looked at them and I think I said something back to them. I don't remember, but yeah, I it's just, yeah, really gross.
Hmm.
That's probably like the worst encounter I have had with fetishization.
Quick side note, are clubs in Japan like anything like clubs here?
Um, I will honestly, I like the clubs here better.
Yeah, I agree. I went to the so I did go to the club in China.
How was it?
It's very different because no one's dancing.
Yeah.
Like
I was like,
they hire like these foreigners to go dance
dude,
like in clubs or
okay.
on the table to get locals to dance.
Yeah,
So like a lot of times me and my friends were the only ones dancing and then people would like kind of loosen up and join in, but it's like a lot of people standing around with their friends.
yeah, that's literally the exact same thing. It must yeah, it must be some kind of thing in Asia. I don't know. Maybe not though.
Mhm.
I haven't really been to a lot of Asian countries, but yeah,
Mhm.
it was the same thing for me. It was just like they hired these go-go dancing girls and they would like come out at weird times and try to get people to dance on the dance floor.
Yeah.
And it would literally just be me and my friend dancing and then like men trying to like come up and dance with
Yeah.
the go-go girls and then like us. And it was just
Mhm.
really strange. Like no one would want to dance. Like I like dancing, so I prefer going to the clubs in America because everyone dances. It's just
Yeah.
like a lot
Even
more
if you
fun.
can't dance.
Yeah, I mean, you and I, you,
Neither of us can dance.
yes, we can't dance, but we have great dance moves.
Oh yeah. I finger dance so hard in the club. But I also just wanted to ask like because for me, I think it's a little bit difficult to talk about being mixed in Asian context, but like in the sense of when the country is very homogenous.
Mhm.
So like it was very so like when I was in China, even though I'm not Chinese,
Mhm.
so it's like, very homogenous there. So a lot of my when I was there, because I was there studying, a lot of my classmates who were like fully white American would get, stared at and like people would try to take pictures with them or of them.
Yeah.
They try to be discreet, but they're not actually that discreet when they take pictures of you.
Mhm.
But it's like a whole other level if they like know that you're mixed, I feel like.
Mhm.
And it's almost because it's a novelty, but it's like a different kind of fetishization,
Yeah.
you know? And I feel like when a lot of people in Asia think of mixed, they think of like white and Asian, right?
Yeah.
Like, and we talked about that in our episode with Michael, that like when people think mixed, they just think white and Asian. No other mix exists.
Yeah.
But there's like this kind of obsession with like either looking half or, trying to finding people that are like that, because I feel like I know in China there's a couple celebrities who are mixed, but like obviously they grew up there because they can like speak Mandarin and stuff, so they're like able to be on TV and
Mhm.
whatnot. But it's just like, and I think I've seen that partially in some Korean TV shows and Japanese TV shows, but they're just kind of like a spectacle as part of the show.
Mhm.
Where like if you're mixed, like it's like, haha, look at this person that looks foreign, but they're actually just like us, you know?
Whoa, that's weird.
Yeah, I've seen it in a couple of Korean TV shows where they'll have like foreigners or even like fully non-Korean foreigners or
Mm-hmm.
like people who are mixed, and they'll like come onto the show and then people will be like, wow, listen to their Korean, they sound so good. Or like, wow. And it's like, well, you're mixed, and they're like, yeah, they grew up in like Korea and stuff like that, so their Korean's really good, and they just like expect them to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a different kind of obsession
Yeah.
with them, which is also like weird. I don't know.
Yeah. I agree. I don't think I've ever seen like, well, maybe I don't know. I'm trying to think of like if I've seen like TV shows like that in Japan.
I listened to someone's podcast who's like a foreigner, so like an American that lived in Japan for like 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he had like a couple friends who were also foreigners, and he said a lot of people get on, not necessarily mixed people, but a lot of people get on TV shows and get like gigs like that for just being foreign and being like the punchline in a TV show just because they're foreign.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like something he said something of like that in
Mm.
his show, but it's like really easy to, he said it like gets tiring because you're just like, the gag is just the fact that you're a foreigner that speaks Japanese and lives there.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that is changing
Yeah.
as like globalization, especially like in, because Japan's kind of allowing a lot more immigrants, right?
Mm-hmm. They are.
Nowadays.
Yeah, they've got like this birth social security crisis going on right now. I'm sure a lot of people know about this, but yeah, they're letting a lot of immigrants in right now because of they basically their society is dying and like
Oh, it's to like offset the diminishing birth rate, right?
yeah, like there's not a lot of new babies coming into the world in Japan
Mm-hmm.
and it's causing a really big problem with social security and just taking care of the elderly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could go into that for a lot of reasons. And there's like a lot of factors that go into that, but there's a lot of immigrants
Yeah.
in Japan right now.
But back to this, but I feel like that happens even here for me personally because I'm around quite a few Vietnamese people.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of older people, they don't know a lot of people my age, obviously, who are like mixed. Like I think I've talked about that before too. Like a lot of young kids
Mm-hmm.
and babies now are mixed with Vietnamese,
Mm-hmm.
but not too many my age. So a lot of people will think that my mom and I are like friends or sisters for some reason, and not like mother and daughter.
Mm-hmm. That is
And then
weird.
when they, yeah, it's weird. And then when they find out I'm mixed, they start like, asking a lot of questions and like looking at my face, and then they'll say that like I'm pretty, just like after the fact that the switch was turned on that I'm mixed.
Mm-hmm.
Then they'll be like, wow, she's so pretty, and like talking, and then asking my mom a lot of questions about me
Mm-hmm.
instead of like, first of all, instead of asking me directly.
Right.
But honestly, I can't really respond to them in Vietnamese anyway, so I'm kind of glad they asked my mom.
So you're just standing there like, hello, yes, I'm the
Yeah,
subject.
but like
Mm-hmm.
I can understand what they're asking, so I'll just like nod along for
Yeah.
the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll ask my mom, how old I am, like, oh, so her dad's white, like, oh, no wonder she looks like that, but wow, she knows how to like she understands, wow, or like wow, she can, so I wear like a jade bracelet, which is pretty common for like Vietnamese women,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, wow, she even wears that, or like, wow, she, basically they're like surprised I participate in Vietnamese culture
Mm-hmm.
when I'm literally sitting there with my Vietnamese mother.
Right. Yeah.
It's just like it's a different kind of beast, I feel like, to talk about that
Yeah.
from people who aren't like non-American issues. It's a different kind of fetishization.
Yeah. I've definitely experienced the same thing too, where people are like, oh, wow, you like Japanese food? And I'm like, yeah, I kind of grew up there for like 9 years. Um, and my mom's Japanese, so it's just like sometimes, yeah. So the exact same thing that you're saying. There's like surprise,
Hmm.
and then they like love it, love me even more.
Yeah, but it's like they love you because you're like a spectacle of being mixed and liking, your own culture,
Yeah,
which is weird. But it
yeah,
goes back to that thing that was like, the Asian see you as like a completely white person,
mhm,
and then like white people see you as like an Asian person,
mhm,
you know?
yeah, exactly.
Because
Yeah,
that's basically what it is. Like they're seeing you as someone who's like not a part of the culture at all,
mhm,
and
yeah,
that's why they're so amazed.
yeah. They're so surprised, and then like they like you even more
Hmm.
because you're participating in it in your own culture.
Yeah. That's why sometimes I like don't know how to respond to those things, and I think they can tell I get annoyed
Mhm.
when people ask me like, "Oh, so you do know Vietnamese food or like stuff like." I'm like, "Yes, I am after all Vietnamese."
Yeah.
Or like it's a little bit weird like, yes, I did grow up, with a Vietnamese family, or like even on the other side, they're like, do you would like if like white people ask me, have you ever, been here or done this? And I'm like, yes, I grew up here.
Mhm.
I also know how to eat apple pie.
Mhm. Get out. Oh my god.
But it's just like, it's the whole thing where they treat you as the other when you're
Yeah.
actually like a participant of both.
Yes, exactly. But you don't always get treated that way. I also, yeah, I'm thinking about it. They like you more, like for us, for example, because we're very
Mhm.
close with our Asian sides.
Mhm.
So, yeah, people like us more when we say, like, oh, we like Japanese or Vietnamese food, or we, yeah, have participated in these cultural events. But I'm
It's
thinking,
like we're something special
yeah,
when like we're just like anyone else that grew up with the culture.
yeah, but I'm like thinking about people who are like, I have a friend who's half, one of my
Mhm.
best friends, and she doesn't know a lot about
Mhm.
her. Like, she knows enough, but like she doesn't know like a lot like I do,
Mhm.
or like we do with our
Right.
Asian sides.
Mhm.
And it's like making like some like a comment like that would make them feel like they're less whatever half
Yeah.
they are. And like that's not okay either, because they
Yeah, like
should,
they're less than.
yeah, and we're more than, like, no,
Yeah.
that's not,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
And excluding people actually and othering. Yeah, I was just thinking about that because I was like, that would be really unfair if somebody like asked her or like said to her, "Oh, you don't like or you don't know about this."
Yeah, I mean, no matter on what part of the spectrum you are, like you're mixed and you grow up in the like in our case, like growing up in Vietnam or Japan, or someone on the complete opposite side where they just don't have any connection at all, it doesn't make you more or less biracial.
Mm-hmm.
Like your level of participation in the culture doesn't really change how other people are going to perceive you either in a first impression, and
Mm-hmm.
then them finding out you do or don't participate at a certain level, or like had the chance to participate or anything like that. People obviously perceive you differently once they in the first impression, and then once they find out more information, it's like
Mm-hmm.
no one's more or less biracial than
Yeah.
than another.
Yeah. That's
Like,
gross.
yeah, like your friend is
Mm-hmm.
not more American than you, not less Japanese than you.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah, I don't know. Because people use that same argument to lessen mixed people with people who are monoracial that participate in the culture. But there's also
Mm-hmm.
monoracial people that, live here that don't know too much about their parents' culture, just the
Mm-hmm.
circumstance of how they were raised.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't make them more or less, like in our case, Asian. Because
Mm-hmm.
like the concept of like a whitewashed Asian is pretty common.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe they've never their parents didn't enforce, Like some other parents are pretty strict about, especially like with language, that's like a really big deal for a lot of people, is like language retention.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing or not knowing doesn't really make you more or less. I feel like participating in certain traditions doesn't make you a better quote unquote Asian than someone else who doesn't participate, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so stupid.
Yeah, that really is. I'm just like thinking about it. It's like crazy.
Yeah, it's like what I don't know why people are trying to one up each other on that, but
Yeah, for real. Oh my gosh.
especially when they try to compare like monoracial people to biracial people. It's weird when monoracial people say to someone like us, so like for in our case, Asians will be like, "Wow, you're more Asian than me." Because like
Yeah.
especially for someone like you who, you know, speaks Japanese and lived in Japan, has been to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've had people say that to me too, just because I, you know, do a lot of participate in a lot of traditional holidays and like go to Vietnamese temple sometimes and eat Vietnamese food, and then they're just like, you're more Asian than I am," and I'm just like,
What?
okay,
Yeah, like what?
like we both grew up with a in the culture. I don't really know what you're trying to say to me about that. Did you think of me less in that sense? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
and like, are you thinking of yourself as less because I participate in my own culture? Like,
it's yeah, it's not a competition.
yeah, really, no. Like, don't put yourself down or myself down, you know? Like, just calm down. It's not,
Yeah,
yeah, like you said, it's not a competition. It's not who is more and who is less. Like,
yeah.
it doesn't matter.
It really doesn't in that sense. How much you embrace your culture and stuff like that is like your own personal thing. Like
Yeah,
it's not anyone's business.
no. And you shouldn't
Um,
compare yourself or
yeah,
others to like anyone.
yeah. I guess like one last thing I wanted to say, since I kind of popped into my mind while we were talking about, you know, Asianness just now, is like kind of the reverse fetish of like, because a lot of people kind of joke about yellow fever. So like a lot of white guys or like weeaboos in general will like want to date Asian,
Yeah.
like either Asian men or Asian women. A lot of people want to date people that look like K-pop stars now just because it's popular,
Mm-hmm.
or like the white guys that want to date Asian girls because they have like this idea that they're going to be submissive and like their little anime,
The waifu.
they're the waifu, yeah,
Yeah.
which is also gross, by the way.
Yes, I am
Like,
disgusted by it.
yeah, don't date Asian girls just because you think they're gonna be a certain way, like in bed, or like their demeanor is gonna be easy for you to
You can control
uh
them or
you can
something.
control them. Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's also like kind of the reverse where a lot of Asian girls, and I feel like Asian guys too, will want to date white men and women.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so, kind of going back to, you know, K-pop getting really popular, so a lot of girls want to date like Korean idol looking guys. There's
Yeah.
been so much influence of media on kind of showing like every attractive male is like a white male or a white woman.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that has a lot to do with how a lot of Asians, you know, also end up. I'm not saying like everyone who like ends up with a white person thinks this way, but like we've said, media does have a lot of influence on people, whether you like to think you are or aren't influenced by it.
Mm-hmm.
It does have influence, and a lot of, you know, when you're bombarded by that stuff from day one, like you're gonna learn from it that white is white is right.
Yeah.
So there are like Asian people that won't date people that are other people that are Asian because of like perceptions that they've gained, either from within their own families or by media, that they don't wanna, you know, date other people of other races besides like white people.
Yeah. I've actually like heard people in college say that,
Yeah,
and it's crazy to me.
it's weird. It's there's also kind of like this idea in the Asian community that if you're gonna date someone that's not Asian, you have to date a white person. Otherwise, like your
Ew.
parents will flip out. Yeah, it's
Ew,
gross.
that is so gross. I say if you love someone, it doesn't matter what
Yeah,
they are, you know? Like, just Love.
Um,
It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. Although,
maybe we should have like a dating episode or something
yeah,
where we talk about this a little bit.
we definitely should. I mean, it's, I guess as like the saying goes, love is love, and like it shouldn't matter, but I know it does for some families,
Yeah. And
unfortunately.
there's a really fine line between a preference and a fetish.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I think for like an easy way to kind of discern it is having a type is okay,
Yeah.
unless that type is like the only thing you go for. I think not like the ends up being the only thing you date, but like you're looking specifically for someone to fulfill that type in the sense of like, especially about race, you know,
Yeah.
like, and if there's some idea that you have about people of that race that you want to fulfill.
Yeah.
So like the really popular one I guess that we're trying to get at is a lot of people will want to date Asian girls just because they're so exotic looking and they have like the idea that they're submissive or just like
Yeah.
so unique or whatever, but like they don't actually care about them as a person.
Yeah, like they want this submissive, petite, maybe has like an accent and has like a high pitched voice.
Yeah, like all the people that want like waifus.
Yeah, basically.
They just want them to act like an anime girl. I've seen
Yeah.
people like get really upset online because I don't know if you've seen this, but there's like a Reddit post that's like this girl saying this girl she's Taiwanese.
Mhm.
Like she says in her Reddit post she's Taiwanese
Mhm.
and she's getting like progressively uncomfortable because her boyfriend's asking her to speak Japanese in bed and like cosplay as like an anime girl and stuff like that.
Uh
Yeah, it was really, and she was like, I told him I didn't want to do that. I was uncomfortable, but he's like, but like, so that's like, very
Whoa.
clearly a fetish.
Yeah, that's like a conversation you need to sit down with your boo and you need to figure that one out. Yeah, that sounds like a
Yeah.
fetish. I don't know what to say to that. I mean, if you're fine with that,
Well,
then
I guess if you had two people doing their own thing and they're both happy, there's like an extent where you leave them alone. But obviously, if one person isn't cool with it, like,
yeah. I mean, she sounds like she's not cool with it, so I would say like that's a no. And like it
no
sounds
from
like
me,
he's
dog.
pressuring her. Yeah. It sounds like he's like pressuring her to do that even when she's already expressed that she doesn't want to. And that sounds like a serious conversation needs to be had because it
Yeah.
sounds like a fetishization and an obsession that he has, and that could
Mm-hmm.
cause some serious problems later on if you're not into the same thing, basically.
Yeah. It's just don't fetishize people. If you think you have a fetish, just stop it.
Or I guess like keep it to yourself.
Especially if it's about race, like just don't.
Yeah. Don't objectify people too. This goes for both men and women.
Yeah,
Do
of
not,
any race.
yes, don't do that. It's not cool. Yeah. I wanted to ask you if there are like any specific like incidents that have happened to you where somebody's like said, "Oh, they've got yellow fever," or like, some
People used to say that about me.
that you have
Um,
yellow fever?
well, people used to tell me they used to say that I wanted to be Korean because I like so I've listened to like K-pop and stuff like that for like over 10 years. So like before the really big boom recently.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I've listened to it since I was like 11 or 10, 11 or 12. Like in that like I was pretty young.
Mhm.
Like it's been a long time. And people used to tell before it like got popular, people were like, "Oh, you want to be Korean and like you're gonna like only date Korean guys." And I was like like people started saying that when I was like 13 or 14.
Mhm. Wow.
And like, well, obviously I'm a linguist now and I've always like kind of been interested about like languages in general. So I think that was, and I like self-taught myself a little bit about like Korean as a language.
Mhm.
But like, I don't know why people suddenly thought that I wanted to be Korean just because I listened to K-pop back then.
Yeah, that's weird.
I never said that I didn't want to be Vietnamese or that I wanted to be Korean. Uh,
That's so bizarre.
I never specifically said I only wanted to date Korean guys. I was also really young then, so that was a really weird thing to say. I've dated guys of okay, well, I've dated mostly Asian guys, but not all of most of them have not been Korean.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had like crushes on guys when I was younger and stuff of literally every race.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where they got this idea from, but it made me like super suppress the fact that I liked Korean music, and I just like stopped telling people that because I hated that idea. And that's why I never went to go learn Korean formally, because even though I was kind of interested in it as a language, I just like didn't want to have that label of being obsessed with Koreans
Mm-hmm.
as like of being obsessed with Korean people. Like it was weird. I don't know. It was I didn't really understand why people thought that just because I was like listening to Korean music and stuff like that.
Yeah, so they were like trying to say that you were,
I was like obsessed with Korean
yeah,
people and wanted to be Korean and like stuff.
that's
It was weird.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know where they got the Okay, there are people like that, but I never really gave off those vibes, I think. Like yeah,
Yeah.
there are like weirdos like that, like the same kind of weirdos that like want to be Japanese or like try to say they're half Japanese or whatever.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like the people that aren't, and then they like want to move to Japan and find a Japanese wife, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I've literally never put that information, or I hope haven't put that vibe out there that that's what I wanted out of life. So I've definitely had people like they used to say that a lot about me, but like I don't know, it was weird.
That is weird.
Yeah, I mean, now it's just funny to think about now because it was just so strange.
Mm-hmm.
And like now there are a ton of people like that because of like how popular K-pop has become.
Mm-hmm.
And like most of them grow out of it, but some of them are like very adamant about dating a Korean guy that like has an accent and is like very cute, like cutesy or whatever, just
Yeah.
because like they're obsessed with these idols that act like that for the camera and aren't like that in real life.
Yeah, that's like that's so bizarre to me.
Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah. What about you?
Um, what was the question again? I don't even remember what I asked. I was just like so shocked by what you told me.
Like I think it was like has anyone I
Oh,
guess
fetish size you?
yeah,
Or yeah.
or the other way around. I don't know. I don't know if anyone's ever actually specifically said to my face besides that one person kind of like they were that one person I said earlier about the babies thing, they were now that I think back, they also said things like, "Oh, you're not like because they were from another country, they were like, "Oh, it's, I can't believe I'm dating an American." Like, but you're not too American. And I'm just like, I don't know
What?
why I don't know why that just like went over my head at that time, but like I wouldn't let that slide in general usually.
Love
But I
is
think I was
love is
yeah,
blind.
yeah, exactly. But I wouldn't that's not a cool thing to think about someone that you're trying to date.
Yeah, that's really weird. I would be really offended if somebody said that about me.
Yeah. I mean, we're not together anymore for good reason, so.
Good. I mean, the most explicit one was like I said, the one at the club. Like
hmm
that experience, that was just so crazy. Disgusting. Oh. Yeah.
I hope this episode was everything people we hyped it up to be.
Yeah.
It's a heavy topic and it's hard to talk about.
Yeah, it's
So,
it's uncomfortable and
hmm
it's really it sucks. And
yeah.
it can be, I'm sure it can be traumatizing for some people, and like obviously it has been like maybe not necessarily traumatizing for us, but like it's definitely left an impression on our lives, and we can recount
Yeah.
like specific memories and like experiences from it.
I just hope like especially since I think I've seen more resources to like learn and educate yourself online about issues like this, especially with like the babies and stuff like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
people saying weird stuff about mixed babies.
Yeah.
There's a lot more resources and stuff online on how you should handle those kinds of situations, like as like for monoracial people, like why that's not really a compliment and stuff like that.
Yeah, if it's
Um,
because I know it can
so I'm
come from a
hopeful.
good place, but it's not necessarily a good thing to say. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm hopeful for that. Not hopeful for like the scumbags that like fetishize us, but whatever.
yes, I it, gross.
You're gross. All right, thank you guys for listening. We post every other Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern, and you can catch us on YouTube and anywhere you stream podcasts. And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.